He defied his alien sister-in-law. What she did next will shock you. Jack stood at the edge of the Grand Council chamber, his heart pounding in his chest. The walls around him were made of a strange, shimmering material, pulsing with a light that seemed to come from deep within. The room was silent, save for the low hum of the technology that powered the alien structure. Across from him stood Vexa, his alien sister-in-law, her cold, glowing eyes fixed on him like a predator sizing up its prey. "Do you understand the consequences of your actions, Jack?" Vexa's voice was smooth, almost hypnotic, but beneath it lay an undeniable threat. She was one of the most powerful beings in the Empire, and she wasn't used to being challenged. Jack met her gaze without flinching. He had always hated the way she looked at him, like he was a mere ant, something to be crushed beneath her heel. But he wasn't afraid anymore, not now, not after everything that had happened. "You can't intimidate me, Vexa," Jack said, his voice steady despite the tension that coiled in the air between them. "I'm not going to back down. Not this time." Vexa's lips curled into a slight smile, but it wasn't one of amusement. It was the smile of someone who knew they had the upper hand. She took a step closer to him, her long, graceful form towering over him. "You misunderstand, Jack. This isn't about intimidation," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that sent a chill down his spine. "This is about survival. Your survival. The moment you crossed me, you sealed your fate. But I'm offering you a choice, a chance to walk away from all of this, to save yourself." Jack clenched his fists at his sides. The choice she was offering wasn't a real one. She didn't care about his survival. She cared about control. It was all about power with Vexa. He could see it in her eyes. "What's your idea of survival?" he asked, trying to sound calm, though his insides were burning with anger. "You want me to kneel? To bow down to you and beg for mercy?" Vexa's eyes flashed, and for a moment Jack thought she might strike him. But instead she stepped back, the smile still playing at the corners of her lips. "No, Jack," she said, her voice almost gentle now. "I want you to stop fighting. Stop resisting. You see, if you don't, I will have no choice but to take drastic measures. I will ensure your complete destruction. I will make sure you regret ever standing in my way." Jack's jaw tightened. He could feel the weight of her words, the threat that hung in the air. But he wasn't going to give in. He had fought too long and too hard to let her win now. "You think I'm afraid of you?" he spat. "You think you can just wave your hand and I'll fall in line? I'm not like everyone else you've crushed under your heel, Vexa. I won't bow to you." For a moment, Vexa's expression faltered, a brief flicker of something like surprise crossing her features. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual cold, calculating gaze. "Very well," she said, her tone now colder than ever. "You've made your choice. But don't think there won't be consequences. There will be. And they will be severe. I'll make sure of it." Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was it. The moment he had been waiting for. He had refused to bow down, to give up his fight. But he knew the path ahead would be dark and dangerous. Vexa wasn't just a powerful woman. She was a force of nature. And once she set her sights on someone, there was no escaping her wrath. "I'm not afraid of you," Jack said again, more firmly this time. He turned to leave the chamber, his back straight and his head held high. But as he reached the door, Vexa's voice stopped him. "You think you're walking away from this, Jack? Think again," she called, her words sharp and biting. "You will regret this. You will regret defying me." Jack paused for a moment, his hand on the door. He didn't turn back. He couldn't. He couldn't let her see his fear, even if it was there, lurking just beneath the surface. "You'll see," he muttered to himself, before stepping into the hallway. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud. As Jack walked through the corridors of the alien fortress, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something far worse than anything he had ever faced. Vexa had given him an ultimatum and he had chosen his path. But the cost of defying her was something he couldn't yet understand. He didn't know what she was capable of, but he was about to find out. And as he glanced over his shoulder one last time, he could have sworn he saw a shadow move in the corner of his eye. The silence that followed only made the fear inside him grow. This was just the beginning. Jack had no time to second-guess his decision. The moment he left Vex's chamber, a new reality began to unfold around him. The alien fortress that had once felt like a sanctuary now seemed like a trap, its cold metal walls closing in on him. His footsteps echoed down the long hallways as he tried to make his way out, the weight of Vexa's threat still hanging heavily in the air. He had never underestimated her power, but what Vexa had said echoed in his mind. "You will regret this. You will regret defying me." He had thought it was just a warning, a threat meant to intimidate him into submission. But now, as he moved deeper into the heart of the fortress, Jack realized he might have made a grave mistake. His hand brushed against the smooth surface of the walls as he walked, the sound of distant machinery and alien chatter filling the silence. But it was the silence that bothered him the most. It felt too quiet, as if the whole place was waiting for something. Suddenly, the hum of the fortress's engines shifted. The vibrations under his feet became stronger, a low rumble that seemed to ripple through the entire structure. Jack stopped, heart racing, and instinctively looked over his shoulder. A chill ran down his spine. A pair of alien guards emerged from the shadows ahead, their glowing eyes narrowing as they spotted Jack. They moved with a speed and grace that was almost inhuman, their armor glinting under the artificial lights. Jack's first thought was to run, but he quickly realized there was nowhere to go. The guards flanked him on both sides, their weapons drawn. "Jack," one of them said, its voice calm but menacing, "Vexa has given us orders. You will come with us or we will force you." Jack's heart pounded in his chest. He had never been in a situation like this before. He had faced danger, yes, but nothing like this. Nothing this certain, this calculated. He couldn't fight them. Not here, not now. But he wasn't going to go down without a fight. "I'm not going with you," Jack said, his voice steady, though his mind raced for a plan. "Tell Vexa I'm not afraid." The guard on the left tilted its head, studying Jack for a moment. Then it stepped forward, the weapon in its hand humming with energy. "You misunderstand, human," it said, its voice a low growl. "Vexa didn't ask us to take you. She told us to make an example of you. Your resistance will not be tolerated." Before Jack could react, the guard swung its weapon toward him. The energy crackled through the air, a flash of blue light that seemed to stretch out toward him. Instinctively, Jack ducked, barely avoiding the strike. He spun around, looking for a way out, but the guards were already closing in. The walls seemed to close in around him as his mind raced. There was no escape. He had known this would happen, but he had hoped he could find a way out. He couldn't fight his way through. He was trapped. And then, just as the guards moved in to subdue him, a new voice broke through the tension. "Enough!" The voice was strong, authoritative, and filled with power. The guards froze in place, their weapons lowering slightly as they turned to face the new arrival. Jack barely had time to process what was happening before a tall, slender figure stepped into the hallway, her presence radiating an undeniable sense of control. It was Lyra, the alien outcast he had met in the lower levels of the fortress. "Release him," Lyra commanded, her voice sharp and clear. "He's with me." The guards hesitated, their eyes flickering between Lyra and Jack. Jack could see the confusion in their faces, but they didn't question her. It was clear they knew who she was. "Lyra," one of the guards said, its tone respectful but wary. "Vexa's orders." "Vexa's orders?" Lyra interrupted, stepping closer. "Vexa's not here, I am, and I command you to release him. Now." There was a moment of silence before the guards reluctantly stepped back, their weapons still at the ready but no longer aimed at Jack. Lyra's gaze remained cold and unyielding as she turned to Jack. "Come with me," she said simply, without offering an explanation. "I'll get you out of here." Jack didn't hesitate. He had no idea who this alien was or why she had come to his aid, but he wasn't about to waste a chance to escape. He followed her down the corridor, his footsteps quick but measured. Lyra moved like she knew the fortress better than anyone, her steps confident and sure. As they turned a corner, Jack glanced over at her. "Why are you helping me?" he asked, his voice low. "What's in it for you?" Lyra didn't look at him as she answered, her eyes scanning the hallway ahead. "I'm not doing this for you, human," she said, her voice cold but not unfriendly. "I'm doing this for myself. I have my reasons." "Now stop asking questions," Jack bit back a response. He had more questions than he knew what to do with, but he didn't want to push his luck. He was still trying to process everything that had just happened. Vexa's warning, the guards, the sudden appearance of Lyra. It was all too much. But for now, all he could do was follow her and hope that whatever path she was leading him down would be better than the one Vexa had in store for him. Jack followed Lyra through the winding corridors of the alien fortress, his mind racing. Every step he took felt like a step further into the unknown. He had never imagined he would find himself in this situation, on the run from one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, with only an alien outcast to guide him. But Lyra had saved him. For now, that was enough. The corridor ahead twisted, bending at sharp angles that made it difficult to tell which way was which. The walls seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, the light dimming and flickering at odd intervals. Jack could hear the soft sound of Lyra's footsteps in front of him, but her silence was unsettling. He had so many questions, but he didn't dare speak. Every time he tried to, she simply glanced over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. They reached a set of large, heavy doors, and Lyra placed her hand on the panel beside them. With a low hum, the doors slid open, revealing a dimly lit room. Inside, the air felt cooler, and Jack immediately noticed the faint scent of something metallic. It was an industrial kind of smell, different from the sterile, almost clinical scent of the rest of the fortress. Lyra stepped inside, and Jack followed without hesitation. She walked to a central console in the middle of the room, tapping the controls with practiced fingers. The holographic screen flared to life, casting an eerie glow on her face. "Sit," she said, pointing to a chair nearby. Jack obeyed, sitting down as Lyra began typing commands into the console. He watched her carefully, still unsure of what was happening. The silence stretched between them, heavy and thick with unspoken tension. Finally, Lyra turned away from the console and looked at Jack, her eyes sharp and calculating. "You're wondering why I saved you," she said, her voice steady. "Why I risked my life for someone like you?" Jack nodded, his curiosity barely contained. "Yeah," he said, his voice low. "You could have left me to those guards. I don't get it. You don't even know me." Lyra's lips twitched into something close to a smile. "I don't need to know you. I know what you represent. You're a pawn in a much bigger game than you realize." Jack frowned, trying to make sense of her words. "A pawn? What are you talking about?" Lyra crossed her arms, her gaze never leaving his. "Vexa, she's not just after you because of personal vendettas, Jack. She's playing a much larger game. Her motivations go beyond personal power. She's after something much more dangerous." Jack leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "What do you mean? What is she after?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked over to a table along the side of the room, picking up a small device that looked like a communicator. She activated it, and a holographic projection of a star map flickered to life. Points of light blinked across the map, each one connected by thin lines of glowing light. "This is the galaxy, Jack," she said, pointing to the map. "And these," she continued, gesturing to the points, "are the coordinates of the ancient weapons that Vexa has been searching for. She's been using her position to gain access to these sites, but she's not the only one interested in them." Jack's confusion deepened. "Ancient weapons? What do you mean? Why would she need those? She's already one of the most powerful beings in the Empire." Lyra's gaze was intense as she answered. "Because those weapons are not just tools of destruction. They're capable of reshaping reality itself. Vexa believes that if she controls them, she can rewrite the laws of the universe. She'll have the power to make the galaxy bend to her will." Jack's mind raced. The thought of such power was terrifying. "So what does that have to do with me?" Lyra turned to face him, her expression softening for the first time. "You're the key, Jack. You've unknowingly become a part of this larger plan. Vexa's been watching you, studying you, because she knows you're connected to these weapons in a way no one else is. You have something inside you that makes you different. Something that could either help her control the weapons or stop her." Jack sat back in his chair, his mind spinning. He had never asked for any of this. He had just been trying to survive, trying to live his life. But now he was caught up in a cosmic game he didn't understand. "I don't get it," he said quietly. "Why would she choose me? I'm just a regular human." Lyra's eyes softened, her voice low. "You're not just a regular human, Jack. There's something inside you, something Vexa needs. But you can use it too. You can stop her." Jack shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I don't know how to fight someone like Vexa." "You don't have to fight her with strength," Lyra said, stepping closer to him. "You have something far more valuable, your mind. Vexa relies on brute force, but you have the ability to think, to see things she can't. That's your advantage, but only if you trust yourself." For the first time since all of this began, Jack felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he wasn't completely helpless. Maybe there was a way out of this. He just had to find it. Lyra's expression hardened again. But be warned, Jack, this isn't going to be easy. Vexa is relentless, and she will stop at nothing to get what she wants. Jack nodded, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He didn't know if he was ready for what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. His life had just changed forever. And whether he liked it or not, he was now part of something far bigger than himself. He looked up at Lyra, his eyes steady. What do I need to do? Lyra studied him for a long moment, then turned back to the console. You need to find the weapons before Vexa does. We don't have much time. Jack took a deep breath. The real fight was only just beginning. Jack's mind raced as Lyra led him through the narrow, hidden passageways beneath the fortress. He had been following her for what felt like hours, though he couldn't be sure. The air was thick with the strange hum of the alien technology that powered the structure, and the walls seemed to pulse with an eerie, unnatural energy. Each step he took felt heavier than the last, his thoughts still tangled in everything Lyra had revealed. Vex's plan, the ancient weapons, the connection Jack had to all of it. It was too much to process in such a short time. He had hoped to find answers, but all he had found so far was more confusion. What did he have inside him that made him so important to Vexa? Why did Lyra, someone he knew nothing about, insist that he could stop her? Jack glanced at Lyra, who was walking ahead of him, her steps steady and purposeful. She hadn't spoken much since their conversation in the control room. Every now and then, she would glance back at him with those cold, calculating eyes, but she didn't offer any further explanations. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she wasn't telling him, something important. They reached a small, hidden room at the end of the corridor. The door slid open silently, revealing a dimly lit space. A large table covered in various pieces of alien technology took up most of the room, and several other consoles lined the walls, their screens flashing with information Jack couldn't understand. Lyra stepped inside and immediately began typing commands into one of the consoles. Jack hesitated before entering. Something about this place felt off. He had been following Lyra blindly, trusting her for reasons he couldn't quite explain. But now that they were in a secluded room, the doubt he had been suppressing started to creep back in. Lyra, he started, his voice hesitant. Are you sure about all this? Are you sure we can stop Vexa? Lyra didn't look up from the console. I'm sure, she said simply, her fingers flying over the controls with expert precision. But we need to move quickly. We don't have much time. Jack took a deep breath, trying to push the nagging feeling away. He had come this far, and there was no turning back now. He had to trust her. He had to believe that there was a way out of this. Suddenly, a soft beep from the console interrupted his thoughts. Lyra glanced at the screen, her expression unreadable. Without warning, she turned to Jack, her face hardening. Stay here, she ordered, her voice low and urgent. I'll be back in a few minutes. Jack's heart skipped a beat. What's going on? What's happening? Lyra's eyes flickered with something Jack couldn't quite place. Just stay here. Don't move. Don't trust anyone. Before he could respond, she turned and left the room, the door sliding shut behind her with a soft hiss. Jack stood there for a moment, staring at the door, unsure of what to do. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Lyra's words echoed in his mind. Don't trust anyone. Was she talking about him? Or was there someone else involved? He paced the room, the silence pressing in around him. The faint hum of the fortress's machinery was the only sound, but it felt oppressive, as though it was slowly suffocating him. His eyes wandered over the alien technology scattered across the table. He had no idea what any of it did, but something about it felt dangerous. His instincts told him to leave, to get out of the room and find Lyra, but he couldn't shake the feeling that if he did, it would be too late. He wasn't sure what she was doing, but he had to trust her. She had saved him before. Minutes passed like hours. The air in the room grew thick with tension, and Jack felt as though the walls were closing in. His eyes flickered to the door again, his mind working overtime. What could be taking so long? Had something gone wrong? Just as he was about to move toward the door, a soft click echoed through the room. The door slid open, and Jack turned sharply, expecting to see Lyra. But what he saw instead made his blood run cold. Standing in the doorway was another figure, one Jack hadn't seen before. The figure was tall, its face obscured by a hood and mask, but the voice that followed sent a chill down Jack's spine. Well, If it isn't the human, the figure said, its voice low and mocking. I'm surprised you're still alive. Jack's heart stopped. It was a voice he recognized. It was the voice of one of Vexa's trusted agents. How had they found him? The figure stepped forward, removing the hood to reveal a familiar face, one that Jack had only seen in passing, but one he would never forget. It was Lyra, but this wasn't the same Lyra. The eyes that had once been filled with calculation and cold determination were now sharp and cold, filled with a cruel amusement. Lyra? Jack stammered, his voice barely a whisper. What's going on? What is this? Lyra's lips curled into a twisted smile, her once warm expression now dark and filled with malice. Oh, Jack, you really thought I was on your side, didn't you? Jack's stomach dropped as the truth hit him like a freight train. Everything, every word, every action had been a lie. Lyra had played him from the start. She had never been his ally. You were never meant to stop Vexa. Lyra continued, her voice dripping with amusement. You were just a pawn, just like everyone else. The room seemed to spin as Jack's world shattered. He had been betrayed, not just by Vexa, but by the one person he had trusted the most. You used me? Jack whispered, his voice thick with disbelief. Lyra nodded slowly, the twisted smile never leaving her face. And now you'll pay the price. The air in the small room felt thick with betrayal. Jack's heart hammered in his chest as he stared at the woman before him. The woman he thought he could trust. The woman who had saved him, guided him, and promised him a way out. And now Lyra was standing there, smiling like a serpent, revealing the truth that cut deeper than any blade could. You used me. Jack's voice was barely a whisper, the weight of the betrayal crushing him. Lyra took a step closer, her expression cold and mocking. Oh, Jack, you're more useful than you know. You always were. But you never had the full picture, did you? Jack's fists clenched at his sides, the rage bubbling inside him. He had been a fool. All this time he had thought Lyra was his ally. But in the end, she was just another tool in Vexa's grand scheme. He had played right into her hands. Why? Jack spat, his voice trembling with anger. Why pretend to help me? Why lead me on? Lyra's smile didn't falter. She tilted her head slightly as if considering the question. Because, Jack, you were the key. You've always been the key. You just didn't know it. But now you do, and soon Vexa will have what she's been searching for all along. Jack's mind spun as the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Vexa, the weapons, the reality-altering power, everything led back to him. But why? What was it about him that made him so important? You're not making sense, Jack said, his voice hardening. What does Vexa want with me? What does she want with those weapons? Lyra's eyes glinted with something dark, something that sent a chill down Jack's spine. Vexa wants to reshape the universe itself. And you, Jack, are the only one who can help her do it. You're not just a human, not anymore. You've been exposed to the same energy that powers the ancient weapons. That makes you a vessel. You're the bridge between her power and the weapons themselves. Jack stumbled back, his mind reeling. He had known there was something different about him ever since he first stepped into the fortress. But this was too much. He wasn't just a pawn in a fight between powerful beings. He was the very key to the destruction of everything he knew. You want me to help her destroy everything? Jack whispered. The horror of the revelation sinking in, Lyra's smile widened. Not destroy, rebuild. Vexa wants to remake the galaxy in her image, and with you by her side she will finally have the power to do it. Jack's thoughts raced. Everything he had fought for, everything he had believed in felt like it was slipping away. He had come to this place hoping for freedom, hoping to stop Vexa from claiming ultimate power, but now it seemed he was destined to be part of her twisted vision. I'll never help her, Jack said firmly, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. I'll never be a part of this. Lyra's face darkened, and for the first time Jack saw the true malice in her eyes. You don't have a choice, Jack. You never did. You're too far into this now, and Vexa won't let you walk away. The words hit Jack like a slap. He had been so certain that there was a way out, a way to stop everything. But Lyra's cold gaze told him the truth. There was no escape. The room seemed to close in around him. The walls, the lights, the air. It all felt suffocating, like he was trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. But in that moment, something inside him shifted. He couldn't let this be the end. He wouldn't let Vexa and Lyra win. Without thinking, Jack lunged at Lyra, catching her off guard. She stumbled back, her eyes wide with surprise. But she quickly regained her composure, her hands moving toward a hidden weapon at her side. Jack didn't give her a chance. He grabbed the weapon first, twisting it from her hand and throwing it aside. Lyra's face twisted in fury as she reached for a blade hidden in her belt. But Jack was faster. He grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back, forcing her to the ground. "You may have used me," Jack said, his breath coming in sharp gasps. "But I'm not going down without a fight." Lyra snarled beneath him, struggling against his grip. "You think you can stop me? You think you can stop Vexa? You're nothing." Jack's heart raced as the weight of her words settled into his chest. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for the future of everything he held dear. The galaxy, his people, everything that Vexa threatened to destroy. Suddenly a new sound filled the room, the heavy thud of boots against metal. Jack turned just in time to see a squad of Vexa's elite guards storm into the room, their weapons raised. Lyra's smile returned, this time with a cruel twist. "You're too late, Jack," she said, her voice almost gentle. "Vexa's forces are already here, and you're about to see just how powerless you really are." Jack's chest tightened as the guards closed in, their weapons aimed straight at him. There was no way out. He had no time to think, no time to plan. The odds were stacked against him. But in that moment, a strange calm washed over him. He had made his choice. He wasn't going to let Lyra and Vexa win. Not like this. With a final, desperate surge of energy, Jack broke free from Lyra's grasp and dashed toward the control panel across the room. His fingers flew over the buttons, his mind focused on one goal: to disable the weapons that Vexa had been so desperate to control. He wasn't just going to stop Vexa. He was going to take away her power, her advantage, and her chance to rewrite the galaxy. As the countdown began on the panel, Jack knew this was the final chance. Either he would destroy Vexa's grip on the universe or he would fail, and everything he fought for would be lost.